All right, welcome, people. Welcome tonight for our conversation on sex, love, and relationships. Welcome to everyone. Tune in, share this with your friends, share it on pages, share it in groups, so folks can get this information that we're going to discuss today in dealing with relationships. So I am about to bring in my guest tonight for our conversation. For those who don't know me, I am Asha Sims. I'm a licensed therapist. I am a intimacy coach, a bliss coach, and a sensual arts educator. I'm all about enforcing love and love with self in order to be able to love others. And that is what a lot of my work that I am focusing on now. So I'm going to bring in my guest tonight. Hello, Mr. Todd.
Hello, Asha. How are you?
I am well. Welcome to our conversations on sex, love, and relationships. I am so honored to have you here tonight with your knowledge that you are going to offer to the world. I've had different people already been inboxing me with questions to ask. They were scared to post their questions, but
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I
Uh-oh.
know, but I'm ready. I will bring the questions. So anybody that is listening or tuning in, you guys can always put some comments in the comment box if you have any particular questions for us tonight, or if you don't want anybody to know what your questions are, you can send them to my DM, and I will try to keep up with it. Y'all know I'm at this point, so I got to take my glasses off to see the phone, but I'll try to keep up if anybody have any questions on what I see. So, Mr. Malloy, will you just kind of
Mhm.
give them a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
Well, what I do, I consider myself a part of the solutions to the ills of society. I help people in the midst of crossroads, life challenges, things that impact them individually as an individual, couple, or family. By by title, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, and certified sexuality educators. So I work with people in regards to enhancing the quality of their lives on varying levels, which include love, intimacy, and sex.
All right. So, as y'all see, people, another reflection. So, I'm not the only one out here always talking about sex and orgasms. I just want the world, all my
Yeah.
friends say every conversation, it starts with that. Well, it's others. So, it's an art to it, it's a study, it's therapeutic. So, I like bringing on those with that knowledge to share
Hmm.
with others about the whole thing with relationships now. So, as we both know, we're therapists. We're seeing a lot. I know I've been seeing a lot within my clientels and relationships and so many dynamics of it. What are you seeing lately when it comes to relationships? I know there's been a shift. Are you seeing a shift with what couples are experiencing, especially post COVID? Because
Oh
I
yeah,
think it's a
yeah,
wake
I'm
up
very
call.
no, very. You know what it is I see a lot of couples struggling because think about this: everybody had a rhythm, a frequency, whatever those things however you want to define it. Then what? Back in 2020, early 2020, all of a sudden the world changed, and
Mhm.
now they're new normals. And now we used to spend, the lion's share of the week or the day somewhere else, and then we get the last half of the day. Now we're locked in the room for 24 hours, 7 days a week for a couple of years,
Mhm.
working from home, educating children from home. So whatever infrastructure, whatever coping skills they had, whatever interventions to be successful were no longer useful in this new environment. So now everybody's in the midst of clutching at straws, trying to find new normals.
Mhm.
However, I think it goes far deeper than that
Mhm.
because we have to think about this. Nobody teaches us how to be intimate partners. What we're taught to be are students, we're taught to be professionals, we're taught to be military personnel. After that, we wing it. So here it is. We guess our ways through life when real education and not thinking sex, intimacy, and love are about taboo subjects. They're really quality of life issues. And if
Mm.
you actually look at from that, that may help normalize people. So now we can begin to have healthy communication because there is a correlation between healthy communication, sex, and intimacy. Because it's
Mm.
hard to be fully intimate and sexual and all the rah rah when I don't like you.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what COVID all of a sudden people realize, do I really like this person? And then
Oh, I've had
oh,
a lot of clients get divorced,
yeah,
25-year marriages and so forth because they actually recognized they actually didn't like them and there was so much water under the bridge. Some people chose to, quite a few chose to divorce, but quite a few just decided to restructure their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, with the investment involved and all of the different parameters, their children involved, you shared a lot of yourself, your heart, your dreams, your aspirations. Why
Mm.
just give that up on a whim? If it is salvageable, why not just say let's look for new normals? Because in
Right.
truth, long term relationships should be looking for new normal because life is dynamic, not static. It's always changing. So how can you still be the same? So if
Right.
we're not communicating, we're not talking, we're not sharing, we become irrelevant in each other's lives.
Exactly. Exactly. So in relationships, what would you say has been more of a strong factor in relationships ending? Money or sex?
Family of origin issues, making everything everybody else's problem, thinking you're perfect.
Mm.
It's the other person's problem. In my office, everybody's pointing,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to remind them that neither one of you are the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
nobody else's. It's nobody's fault. Each of you hold an accountability, and until you're really to look at your accountability in the process, you're going to be like a dog chasing its tail. You're going to keep going around and around in a circle, find yourself in a rut, in a routine, in a pattern that you can't break.
Mm-hmm. So that accountability, and I often hear that
Mm-hmm.
people, one partner is willing to work on issues and develop themselves, but if the other
Mm-hmm.
partner is not wanting to do the work, I think that's the gap. Like, where do they go from there if one
No, but
person is going to do the work and one is not?
well, you have to look at it. I look at it systemically. If you change one part of the system, you change the whole system. If one person changes, the other person has to change.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, even if they don't change, they'll change address.
Mm.
Or they will personally change because they value the relationship enough, what they get, what they receive, and value the person enough to create those shifts. My point is this: when you make a shift and a change, whether the person wants to change or not, they have to. Why? Because you don't respond the same. The equation that they got to push your buttons no longer works.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
cultivates change. That cultivates new conversations. That cultivates the more difficult conversations and begins to allow the other person that's actually doing the work to gain data points to make the healthiest choice and decision in whatever timetable they're working with.
Right, right. That makes sense. And that's the rockiness often when one person goes into this new self and new perception, they're
Mm-hmm.
so ready for the partner to be on the same level at that time, but everybody has their different points of shifting
Exactly.
and healing. So it's still
Mm-hmm.
another area of grace and being gentle with the partner to allow them to grow in the space that is healthy for them instead of pushing them too much, which sometimes can make them just back
Right.
away totally.
Now, I always share that everybody has their pace, just like intimacy. Some people 7 day a week people, some people twice a month people, some day 4 day a week, whatever. Everybody's different, and we have to recognize that we're the only ones that see life through our eyes. Nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, we have to allow everyone their own experience. It's not so much that people are saying, "Hey, I want you to get this like I get this." They're looking for signs of life.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see you make an effort. Are you making an intentional, consistent effort? As long as you're making a consistent effort, most people extend grace. It's when the person is resisted because too often times we allow our perception to be the other person's truth. No, that's not the truth. The reason you're doing this is for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how is
Mm-hmm.
your perception more
Right,
accurate than the
right.
person who's communicating their truth?
Mm-hmm. And then the other person feel minimized, which makes them not want to communicate their feelings because they don't feel
Exactly,
heard.
because I've been disrespected. I have been minimized. I've been diminished, and basically told a liar or rejected. And my desire to pull towards you or reach to you is what?
Mm-hmm. And then you deal with rejection.
Right, exactly. And then you get to the point. Well, if my best ain't good enough, well, let me go somewhere else.
Right, right. And speaking of that, I think a lot of times I tell my couples that are dealing with infidelity that sometimes that could be the best thing that can happen in a relationship to get to the truth on some core issues that are there if they're willing to go to the truth to hear it. And I think that's so key when we talk about infidelity and going elsewhere. So often we're ready to just cut it off. But I feel like if you really stuck through it to hear, because it's another behavior, what is the core of the behavior? What was it that made them stray off? Was it, not saying it's a blame, but there is a core issue in it that often we're so caught up on why they cheated, or that, and their ego being hurt, instead of really looking at the core, what was the core of the infidelity.
Right. Remember, well, number of things. To your point, what you're sharing is accurate. Even though when I share that with clients, they get this look on their face like I'm tripping or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be, like I'm lost my mind, but actually
Right.
I haven't. The
Mm-hmm.
research is there. There's years of research that identify that people that actually move through infidelity actually become stronger, to some degree impenetrable. Why? Because you're dealing with the root cause and creating an infrastructure to prevent similar factors. Because in order for an affair is really a symptom, not a root cause. As a
Mm-hmm.
result of a disconnect, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, different, we don't have shared vision anymore. We're not a intimate part of each other's lives. As a result, that breach will create a loss of character for one or the other or both, and in turn, step outside of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
However, many times I find people stepping out of a marriage does not necessarily mean they don't want to be married.
Right.
What they use it, they justify good, bad, or indifferent as a placebo to,
Mm-hmm.
to just be able to sustain a solution where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and they don't, there are not many people, and don't give me a little latitude here. There aren't many people that just says, hey, let me just have an affair to wreck my situation.
Right. Right. That's never.
What it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? What they, it's almost passive in that I'm just talking. We're talking. We're connecting to people. However, there's a want. There's a need. Now, all of a sudden, I'm connecting to somebody that vibes. Yeah, I go into it initially just as safe, but now I'm allowing an emotional connection to build. And that's actually where the breach happens. And so, just to be clear for the audience, from my perspective, from the therapy perspective, from our professional perspective, infidelity can be emotional, sexual, or both. However, the research shows that irrespective of whether it was emotional and or sexual, it has a similar impact.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, men, the last research I read, are more concerned with the sexual part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't care if it's sexual or emotional, they're still feeling the breach, because
Yeah.
anytime you see a part of yourself that your partner believes belongs to them, it could be seen as a breach. You're sharing your heartfelt sentiments, you're sharing life secrets, you're talking about their relationship, or even sharing information about your partner
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
can be seen as a breach. But you have to think about this. When we get married, how many of us really talk about what we want this to look like, the shared experiences, really take the time to introduce themselves and teach people how to love them, and be open to be a student to learn how to treat and love them, such that the breaches are less likely to happen?
Mm. The honest, that radical honesty.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Why not? Think about this. Most of the time we come into relationships, we present the representative. Then after what? But that can only last for so long. Nobody can maintain a representative.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
then, but what happens is the representative shows up. Then all of a sudden there's a shift, but we hold on to the relationship because we remember they could act right. So we're doing it in hopes that they act
I
right,
hope.
but recognize and hope that they act right, and begin to diminish, justify the red flags, I guess is the
Right.
easiest way to say
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So we really have to be honest with ourselves, understand who we are, what our wants, desires are. So, for example, by perception, people consider me a bull in a china shop. My mama's called me a bull in the china shop since I was 5, and I understand why people say that. However, if you handle me like a bull in the china shop, you'll probably get a very formidable person, because actually I'm a fine piece of china.
Mhm.
No,
Mm.
the bull in the china shop is to protect the bull in the china shop is to actually protect the china inside the bull.
Mm. So basically, like you're saying, there is one representative they're seeing initially, the protector of what the truth, well, which is
What,
why
what,
in
why?
relationships after 2 or 3 years somebody's been married or they dated for 12 years and had a beautiful relationship, and then when they get married about 2 years then they're seeing another representation, and then it ends and you wonder like, well, what happened? Everything was going so well when you were dating. What shifted when you got married? And I think that's
Right,
when people release the mess. Whoo, I got him now, so let
right.
me,
What?
the true person come.
It's like the job interview, and then once you get hired, you put your dreads on, you grow your beard back, you
Right.
do all.
All of that you want to be right. Mhm.
Exactly. I want to be purchased. I want to connect. I want to be accepted. So let me play this game as opposed to failing to recognize you're setting yourself up to be disappointed and you're setting the other person up to fail. Why? Because you're giving them not a real truth. You're giving
Mhm.
them misinformation. So they're making decisions on misinformation. At some point, they're going to look at you and be disappointed. They're going to feel like a failure, i.e., the battling banjos, the back and forth. Here we go.
Mhm. Mhm.
And unless we are willing to teach, we're really setting people up to fail. And what I've also find, many people don't even know themselves. So, for
Right.
example, many people consider themselves wonderful lovers and or they're great, but their partner sucks.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
However, but my point is, so I give them a little test. I give them a little, basically a gingerbread man, and I say, identify front and back what your sexual equation is and the erogenous zones, etc. Most people on average may get to about 6, 7, 8.
Mhm.
However, failing to recognize that the largest sex organ is the skin. Wherever there's skin, there's a nerve ending that could create arousal. So
Yeah.
half the time, people don't know their own bodies well enough to
Right.
teach someone, but yet you're going to tell them they're awful. But you've been with you your whole life. They haven't. They've been with other people. So are
Mhm.
you asking them to use an old equation in a new experience? So I'm gonna use Henrietta's equation or Bill's equation on Bertha and Thomas.
Mhm. Mhm. So, like you said,
How
that level of intimacy with self prohibits the level of intimacy within
mhm,
the relationship.
correct? Because the more I know about myself, so once someone will see me and they'll see whatever they see. However, but if you really want to know me, now we have to sit and talk. I have to let you know, yeah, I'm a piece of china. However, I am breakable.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I might look like the bull, but I am a fine piece of china, so I'm breakable. And let me share with you how best to handle me, such that I'm offering you my best because there's an environment that I need based on my uniquenesses, my nuances that allow me to be my greatest self. It is not for her to figure out, or him to figure out, or they to figure out. It's for
Mhm.
you to teach the individual such that they come into an understanding, and in turn by their demonstration through action, I actually know that they heard me. They're demonstrating that they heard me. In turn, it creates emotional safety and security. So now as intimacy comes, as long as there's a strong connection of emotional connection, the intimacy can be worked out. Because
Right.
intimacy without emotional connection is moving pieces and parts. Yes, you'll ejaculate, you'll orgasm, you'll do all of these things, but that outer body God experience, research shows and life shows that the stronger the emotional connection, the more intimate, the more passion, the more outer body God-like the experience you will actually have during intimate times, whether clothes on, clothes off.
Mhm. Mhm. So, with that, moving on with the intimacy, one thing that I've been hearing, and one of the questions someone asked
Mhm.
me is the sexless marriages. I mean, we talk about infidelity, but then it's that point of those who've been married and there's no sex. One is wanting to have sex. One is whether their libido is or low or don't have an interest. How do you move past that? Because some are like, well, what do I do? Do I just step out to get what I want? Do I stay
Mhm.
in it? Where is that thin line and that approach? And that was what someone asked me. What do I do if it's been 9 years and there's no intimacy and sex? Do I stay in it or do I go outside?
Well, that's a very big that's a
I know that's a big, big question. Like,
yeah, that's real big. Let's do it this way. not many people are on the same page about many things. Just because we're on different pages, that doesn't mean we can't collaborate and come up with some normal. But if I'm actually working with someone that doesn't want to work with me, that's a
Mm-hmm.
data point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you have to make some choices.
Then you have to make life choices and decisions. Now, you have low performers, high performers. That's the different levels. However, what one of the biggest things I do when I do this is we create, or what I have, or what I've created is an intimacy wheel. In this intimacy wheel, we define for the couple what intimacy really means, and we have to explain, or I choose to explain, I have to explain that intimacy doesn't necessarily mean penetrative sex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it can be intimate, but it's penetrative sex can also not be intimate.
Mm-hmm.
So intimacy can look like hand holding. Intimacy is really, for me, is about emotional connection. Sex is about emotional connection. It's all about emotional connection, wanting to be connected to someone for a greater out of body experience, for an enhancement of quality of life, to feel connected to universal order in varying shapes and forms, for your own edification and for the benefit that it creates for the people around you. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, so Mr. or Miss A, person B, identify to me what's intimate for you. Soft walk, listen to music, yada, yada, yada. Name, put on the wheel. Now, each time someone writes, they share the information with their partner, they create a discussion to help understand, and all of a sudden they recognize they have an extremely broad construct of intimacy. Now, I don't like rejection. I haven't found many people that do.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it such that no one actually feels rejected. Why? Because intimacy is really about emotional connection. So, therefore, what I'm saying when I ask for penetrative sex or I ask for these things, I'm really saying I'm in a space I want to connect to you emotionally, intimately.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I would like to do it. As opposed to you saying yes or no, the key is you're triggered to say, this person wants to connect to me. And the typical example I use, oftentimes men become wanting sex after the a female partner or partner's gone to a doctor or had some type of procedure or just a
Mm-hmm.
gynecological exam. And
Mm-hmm.
I always share with the guys, sir, she's had rods, she's been in stirrups. The last thing she wants is you touching her.
Right.
However, so, but ma'am, I understand that why. But what he's really saying is, I want to emotionally connect to you. I need to feel intimate. Now, how are the other possible ways we can do that? There's manual stimulation. There's oral stimulation. There's other things, cuddling. There's a wide variety of things that could create a similar experience. Hey, I recognize what you want. However, this is what's going on right me, and I'm out of sorts. I do want to connect to you. That's the very point that we're together. But based on this, do you mind if we alternate and position what you're looking for at another time and appointed time? So I'm not rejecting you, but there's some real life stuff that goes on here. And can
Mm-hmm.
you work with me? Can we collaborate together? Because again, there are certain nuances we all have that have to be addressed. So,
Right.
and in turn, if it can't be done in the relationship between the two of you, how can you discuss and create a different construct in the event that you want to be together? There are people that are married. All of a sudden, one may decide they want a same sex relationship. Not everybody in those constructs get divorced.
Right.
Some actually stay married and they create a construct that allows the freedom and the exploration necessary.
Mm-hmm.
However, they have boundaries and structures such that they can maintain whatever value they see in the system that they currently have. So everyone is unique. However, you have to be clear to the point. You have to be clear with you what's your truth? What is that environment that allows you to thrive? I know very clearly, irrespective of what I do, irrespective of being the first African American male sex therapist and all the things that I know, doesn't necessarily mean I do all of them. I
Mm-hmm.
do those things that are comfortable for me and look to connect to someone that can vibe on my rhythm, my path,
Right.
or
Right.
at least collaborate so we can both feel a win in this.
Right. And
However, but that's transparency and
transparency.
vulnerability,
Right. Right. That's what I
self
say. That
awareness.
self-awareness, trust of self, a sense of self before you can release those labels and expectation of what society have. And that's often when I'm working with a lot of ladies and they're upset, well, this person is still calling him, why is she still having communication? I was like, nobody possesses anybody. It's not a partner is not a possession. So at the core, what are the triggers? What
Hmm.
is it triggering? Rejection? Is it making you feel insecure? What
Hmm.
is it that those boundaries that they feel that's considered wrong in the situation because
Hmm.
of not wanting to deal with rejection, I think.
But 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 a lot of that stems from family of origin issues or previous relational issues. Remember, well, I can't say remember. Let me do it this way.
Hmm.
Um, my perspective and truth, we respond to feelings more than words and environment.
Hmm.
If I feel today the way that I felt yesterday, those moments blend and I respond today as though I were yesterday. So if I am not emotionally safe or secure based on previous relationships, whether past relationships, past my family of origin, and you
Hmm.
have a face or a gesture that reminds the person of back, they will actually think you're having an affair. I mean, and I actually dealt with this today. There's a
Hmm.
gentleman who was bullied and picked on a lot as a kid. So he gravitated to women and he was always the friend. He was the friend zone
Hmm.
male
Good
friend.
guy. He's
Yeah,
nice.
the good guy, the nice. And even to this day, he says, I am not on the phone with a man more than 7 days because men are always got this testosterone and we're going to compete. I don't feel like competing. Now, his wife, in this particular case, has been very offended and resentful for about 6 years because he had a female friend. Now they were talking about IT nerd stuff that he does. He said there was never emotional connection. He said I've always had female friends when I met her. However, she wants me to have no female friends because you never know what a woman wants. But she's dealing with her stuff, not his. But she's projecting her issue and making it his problem.
Hmm. And so somebody asked in the chat of and I don't know if it's not one set answer, but why do
Hmm.
men feel that they can, but feel as a woman can't? That whole thing with possession or property, that
Hmm.
it's more understandable. Or we always hear, I ain't love her, I don't love her. And
Hmm.
like that's supposed to make us feel better. Do you think it has, because I always say we're internal and men are external, so that different emotional connection is different, but where is it that that's okay for men but women how?
Well, I don't. That depends on the relationship.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know that. I recognize that's a stereotype, that's a norm. I don't think it's right either way. Um,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
depends on the structure of the relationship. However, we have to look at it this way: men are taught to suffer in silence because remember, men are rough, rugged, and rude. Women are sugar and spice and everything nice. Men
Mhm.
don't have emotions and so forth. And then at which point you begin to share your emotions. Now all of a sudden you butter. You're less than who you are.
Mhm.
So now
Mhm.
I have to be the man. I have to be the protector. I have to be the fixer. So therefore, now when there are kinks in my armor and you've hurt my feelings, you've disappointed me, or someone disrespected me, I can't say anything because. But now I'm stressed. I'm depressed, and now relationally because I can't really tell you what's going on because of my pride, my ego, or just patterns or pre-programmed patterns. And with the teaching silence is that we go for the placebo.
Mhm. The
But
placebo.
and whoever asked the question, I want to be very clear.
Mhm.
Women cheat just as much as men.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
nobody has a caveat on that. Actually, for the last almost 40 years, I've heard everybody's secrets.
Right. Right.
Women
Right.
may do it better,
Mhm. Mhm.
but women and men breach relationships. There's nobody has a hold on it.
Right.
It's oftentimes no matter who does it. I always ask, why would you cheat yourself? You actually cheated on you. There was an ideal you were looking for,
Right.
and you robbed yourself of your ideal. You told to blow up what you said you wanted. So help me understand why you would do this to yourself.
Right. Right.
Let's
Exactly.
let's begin looking at your own ownership
Mhm.
and things of that nature. Because
Right.
again, most of the time, a lot of us as a society, men and women, even though women are more emotional, they oftentimes don't fully tell the truth for
Right.
one reason or another. Shame, judgment, guilt,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I oftentimes hear, even when for example, people that may have never had sex or virgins, then you get married, and all these years you've heard don't, through the churches, through religious circles. Your mother says a
Right.
good girl
I was
don't
going to say
do
that
this.
religion.
Right now, all of a sudden you get married and talking about swinging on a chandelier,
Mm-hmm.
and then the woman or person will hear in their brain, good people don't do this. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed. But they
Right.
don't tell their partner. But their partner can emotionally feel the disconnect. Where's it coming from? Nobody wants to say anything. So, okay, do you really love me? Do you really value me? Now I don't feel secure. Now you've triggered me on some other insecurities that I have, and now the cycle begin, as opposed to a poem by R.D. Lane called Knots. I don't know what you think I know, but I can't tell you I don't know because you think I know. And I don't want to let you know, so please tell me everything. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he
Mm-hmm.
said.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's stop assuming what we know or don't know. How about I just tell you everything
Right.
and we
Right.
work through it together?
Right. And I think what you were saying is so interesting. I was having the same conversation with a client today about how people date, and it goes back to they can be freaky deaky, do whatever, open. I had
Mm-hmm.
one guy say, you know what, I married her because of the oral sex. Whenever I
Mm-hmm.
wanted, it was there. And then when we got married, they turned into the sanctified Mary. And I always say that's interesting because it seemed like that is where the intensity of the sexual relationship should begin, because quote, this is your time to not with someone you trust. So this is
Right.
the point to explore and do. But the society labels up, I can't do this now because I'm a wife. Like it's a whole nother being, when it's been fine all along. Why switch? And I think that's where some feel like I got bamboozled. What
Mm-hmm.
happened? But I
Well,
think it was communication and expectations.
well, it's funny. A couple of things. Number one, it's interesting because when you were talking about the guy that sent that note, I'm thinking of the woman that brought her husband into the session. They
Mm-hmm.
met in college. They do what college people do and explore
Mm-hmm.
and do what they do. Then they did it through having their first child, and the husband said, "I can't do those things with her anymore. That's the mother of my child. You don't do things to
Mm-hmm.
mothers. You do those to the honey on the side."
Right, right, right. And that's the
And
frustrating part, because I said the side pieces get the best loving.
right now, I told, I was asked to say a prayer at a church,
Mm-hmm.
at a wedding, after the wedding and so forth. They asked me to say a prayer. I may have took too big of a liberty, but I was in a church. We're talking about a religious ceremony, so I figured I could throw a little Bible in there. So I said, I recognize that everybody thinks the freak is before marriage. I
Mhm,
don't know if you ever saw the Songs of Solomon.
mhm.
And it also says a married bed is not defiled. So, ladies and gentlemen, romance doesn't really stop at marriage. Actually, the whips and chains and the freaks are actually supposed to come out
Right.
because it
Right.
is undefiled.
Mhm.
Now, however, I said it at a church and they were about to stone me, but they
Mm.
can't stone me because the
And
scripture
that's a
was
whole nother
there.
thing. Like you can't be sexy and be freaky and be in the church.
That's a lie because they ain't read Songs of
Yeah,
Solomon.
sometimes that's where the big
Because
freaks
King,
are.
King, King, what is it? King David was talking about between a woman's thighs, and his face was there, so he must be doing something.
Right, right.
So
Something.
again, my point is that society and the church and have made it taboo, but it isn't. It's only
Mhm,
it's taboo based on a Saint Augustine's letter based in AD. What is it? 400 AD, when he
mhm,
talks about his personal struggle with sex and so forth. And the church, to some degree, my perspective, canonized it and made sex a bad thing.
mhm,
No, God, there is enough scripture throughout the Bible that talks about intimacy, the beauty of it, and how we're supposed to be doing these things and being involved in such experiences.
mhm.
However, God has no issue with intimacy. We may struggle with time, we may be struggling with timing, but the experience is not taboo.
Right, right. And that's a whole nother topic that I've been seeing within my clients, the
Hmm.
church trauma that has impacted the sex life and marriages. It's been some that have come and they were having sex, and then they went to get marital counseling in the church and was told not to, and somewhere in that shame of doing it,
Mm-hmm.
it never started back. So then the marriage kind of was a sexless marriage because of this programming of
Mm-hmm.
before they got married.
Right. What I often do is I challenge people's intellect on why they're doing it. I know what they heard, but have you studied it and read it for yourself?
Right.
So,
Mhm.
as opposed to you taking what people say as gospel and running with it, why not to the book in religion? Most religions have a lot of similarities and say it different ways, but study to show thyself self-approved. So I hear the information, but I'm not going to take it. Let me qualify the information, make sure it's relevant to who I am, where I'm going in a direction,
Mhm.
and then determine whether I should do it. Just because you're clergy, just because you're a doctor, or whatever the case may be, I'm supposed to accept it
Oh,
on face value. They're
right.
perfectly flawed humans like the rest of us. So you
Mhm.
may be able to give me counsel that gives me some insight, but now I have to take that counsel and really make it mine and relevant to my situation and to me, the unique person. So
Mhm.
now I hear it. I don't just take it at face value. Let me study it. Let me go back a little bit. And it sounds like it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't. Because most of the time, when I ask people why they believe what they do and why they made a choice, they can't answer the why.
Right.
Right. So now I spent a lot of time in corporate America, so I use that logic sometime working with clients. So I
Mhm.
said, hey, before you accept something as gospel, ask 5 whys. I
Mhm.
believe this why. Why? So you can get to the root of the issue. And by the time you do that, you recognize a lot of things are delusional that we believe. Like,
Mhm.
for example, this isn't sex or intimacy, but just as an example, we fear the unknown. Why
Mhm.
do you fear what's coming? The unknown is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all day. When you wake up in the morning, you don't know that you're not going to break your hip. You don't know that you're going to wake up in the morning. You get into an accident more often within 25 miles of your house. So when
Mhm.
you leave and go to work in the morning, you don't know you're going to make it to work. I actually have a relative recently went to work, healthy, happy, answered the phone at 9 o'clock. By 9:01, he died right at his desk. They thought he was asleep.
Mm.
That wasn't the plan. Honey, I'll see you when I get home. We
Right.
live in the unknown, but now just the awareness of being in the unknown scares us, and now we're stuck. But we're moving through that same thing all day, every day. But now we're aware of what we live in. And now all of a sudden, I can't because I'm afraid of the unknown. We beat the unknown all day, every day.
Right.
We believe stuff delusion, but once you begin to challenge the delusion and say, where's the truth in what you're saying?
Mhm.
Then they recognize their own irrationality, which creates the buy-in. Then there's a shift.
And then there's a shift. Right. Right.
Mm.
So someone asked a question. Can you touch on the opposite sex friendships when married? Why is it a big issue?
Well, again, it's a big issue based on the individuals.
In the
And
communication
again, in the
of
communication and emotional security and trust. Now,
Mhm.
oftentimes when people say, well, I don't trust my partner. Well, when people say they don't trust their partner, I'm saying you may not trust your partner, but I also hear you saying you don't trust yourself to
yourself.
trust your partner. You
Mhm.
don't trust yourself to partner. And then when I say it that way, then they check themselves because everything's usually, or too many things are the other person's problem. But
Mhm.
then as you find out, then they say, most of my clients will tell me that I don't believe in foreplay. I go right for the gusto
Mhm.
because I
Mhm. Go
I
right
get
in.
I'm straight no chaser. You're
Mhm.
spending money. You're spending money, and I
Mhm.
can I can put all my kids through graduate school with your money, or I can
Right.
help you get there and let somebody else get in there. And there are a couple of people sharing, making my people go
Mhm.
nuts.
Mhm. If
So
you ask, you gonna get the answer. Look.
I want everybody to win and everybody to achieve the goals. My own purpose for being, my own purpose for living. I'm doing what I believe I've been called to do as my God given, however you want to define it, my God given calling. So I do this for everybody to win, not to pacify you or placate you.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we go in and we deal with family of origin issues and why don't you trust your own judgment? I deal with that a lot. I dealt with 3 or 4 people today, men and women of varying ethnicities and demographics,
Mhm.
questioning and challenging their own judgment.
Mm.
So if you can't even trust your own judgment, you're actually almost never stable. You'll always live in a state of anxiety.
Questioning yourself based upon other people's views and viewpoints instead of your
Exactly.
own set point.
Exactly. Right. So it's impossible to trust someone else if you don't even trust your own judgment.
Exactly. And that's where intimacy begins. I've been doing a
Exactly.
lot of readings of Osha, and I love how he states that you got to learn to trust yourself and be intimate with yourself before you can truly experience
Oh,
intimacy with another.
correct. Because again, you know, how are you going to ask somebody to take you somewhere you can't take yourself?
There it
Your
is.
your private parts aren't supposed to be private to you.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
No. It's
Exactly.
self-exploration. It's self-exploration. We have to take ownership for our intimacy. Let's say my partner wants to be penetrated, but he or she is to the left. They want you 2 centimeters to the left or to the right. Why are they giving you a math equation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as I start to actually good intimacy means no mind. I'm caught
You
in the
go with the
spirit.
flow.
I'm not calculating a math equation or
Mm-hmm.
figuring out, how to pay my bills because
Mm-hmm.
that takes away from the experience. No,
Mm-hmm.
what it is, I want to have no mind. So what I do is I take ownership and I shift my own hips because I understand what I want, what I need. So when I position myself there and we maintain the flow, we don't mess up anything and we actually get to go where we want to go,
Exactly. And flow with it.
as
And
opposed
in
to
a
being a
healthy
drill
way.
sergeant or a dictator.
Right, right, right.
It's
Exactly.
intimacy conversations should happen before you become intimate. Across the
Exactly.
dinner
Ask
table,
questions.
taking a
Yes.
walk, so forth. So now when we come together, we already have a body of knowledge and we can explore the depths of that body of knowledge and then after do a lessons learned on, hey, what I want more of, what I want more of, and what we can enhance, not what you did wrong and what I don't want.
So again,
Yeah.
going back to communication, even before, and I think someone had asked why are these things not discussed before they get married, and I think that's a point. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what we are here for as therapists. And I'm going to say even more, a lot of people don't want to go to therapy because I'm not crazy, nothing wrong with they feel, but this is what we're here for, to help people explore these areas in a safe place so that you don't get caught up in the situation and then realize if I would have known this before, I may not have said I do.
Mm-hmm.
But that lack of communication of the truth is often that point that causes the dysfunction sometimes, but not being real with yourself.
Correct. Now, my remember to some degree, and I embellish just to make a point in time, we're actually set up to be challenged. We're set up to be dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, think about it this way. From my perspective, everybody's been traumatized. Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Not because of the isms or the heinous things in life, just how we're reared. When you're a kid, you're supposed to be seen and not heard. When you get a little older, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. When you get a little older, you be politically correct or your socioeconomic situation will be challenged. So, who
Mm-hmm.
actually says, value your own experience enough to put a voice to it, and we love you enough to shift that you have peace? They don't. Whether consciously or subconsciously, we're taught we have to go along to get along. We try that for as long as we can, but we find ourselves having to be in relationship. That's
Mm-hmm.
called attachment theory. The basic way of explaining attachment theory is no matter what anybody says, that everybody wants to know that their loved, wanted, desired, fit, belonged. Everybody. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why do we know that? There's 70 years of research. A lot of people doing it, still doing it today. Can't dispel it. However, the simple way of explaining it, when a baby is born, doctor, nurse, midwife, doula, somebody makes the baby cry. They give the baby to mama. Baby stops crying. Baby hasn't been around long enough to be trained. It's wired in a baby's DNA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where did the baby learn it? It
Right,
didn't. What it
right.
is, it feels comforted, it's soothed.
Mm-hmm.
And that never leaves. Depending on how we're reared, determines if we have a secure attachment style that will have a rippling effect of us being safe and secure throughout the rest of our lives. An insecure one, that means we'll have insecurity for the rest of our lives unless we address it. And then if your parents or somebody's even not meeting commitments and disappoint you to the point where, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with you, I'm fine without you. How many times have people said that? That
Right.
means that I'm so disgusted, I am so emotionally fraught that now I'm becoming just functional. I'm going through the motions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had a client share with me she's faked sex for 4 years before getting a
Right.
divorce.
Right. Right.
Yet, yet you want to be happy, but you're sacrificing yourself and turned yourself into an object. But if your husband did it, you'd be offended.
That part. Exactly. Exactly. And I'm seeing that even the pressure on that. I'm not saying all because I know there's health complications, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing some of the issues with men that are beginning to develop erectile dysfunction. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from this pressure to perform. It's,
Oh, most
it's a
definitely.
mental thing more than always
Right.
a physical
Intimacy
health
is neck.
condition.
Yeah, intimacy is neck up, not waist down.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, George Clinton said, "Free your mind, and the rest
The
will
rest will
follow."
follow. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
In Vogue said it. George Clinton said it a little different, but we all lying. I'll wait till later.
Right.
Free your mind, and the rest will follow. But that's actually not. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Intimacy is biopsychosocial. It's not just biological. The hormones, brain stem being intact, the sacral system of the spine, last eight vertebrae, five eight vertebrae.
Mm-hmm.
As long as those things are intact, biologically they're fine. However, mentally, stress, but it also goes to the brain. So if I'm stressed out, I'm having emotional issues, and I don't feel good about myself, that could actually thwart the arousal process.
Mm.
So if when sex is about performance, it's like, okay, Mr. Man, perform.
Right. The pressure.
Right. Who wants to be in that type of setting, no matter what your orientation is?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you have to satisfy me. I got nothing to do with this, but if you're not good, you're
Right.
not coming back.
Right.
Wow, I
Right.
really want some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I was prolific, I don't like the construct.
Right, right, right. Exactly. And
So,
often, and that's what I tell a lot of women, they put so much responsibility on the man. Well, they're not doing this. He's not big enough. He's not that. And helping to understand again, the
hmm
intimacy starts with you that you don't have to orgasm through intercourse. The key
right,
is if you even able to have an orgasm through energetic connection, start there, then it may not make as much of a difference to the physical, or the physical penetration will be magnified because you have made an emotional and mental connection, not based upon just the physical act.
correct. Now, um, this is why I enjoy being a scientist
Hmm.
because we actually have to research and study. And
Hmm.
I'm not disrespecting anybody, but they're misnomers we have, and there's a biblical, "My people perish due to a lack of knowledge." It actually plays out so much on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
The fact of the matter is, if you, from a scientific perspective, most women in research says women can have an actual good time sexually without having an orgasm. There is those couples that don't necessarily need it, or they don't always need it each time we connect. Again, it's about emotional connection.
Hmm.
Also, when you look at the vaginal tract, you can orgasm from the This is the vaginal tract.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is the vaginal. You can orgasm cervix. You can have a clitoral orgasm, a combination of a G spot, clitoral stimulation, or all three, whatever. There are
Hmm.
numbered like 9 different types of orgasm.
Hmm.
However, within the first inch and a half are most of the nerve ending. The most sensitive part of a
Right.
woman is within the first inch and a half of the vaginal tract.
Hmm.
So the nerve endings become less sensitive the further you go down.
So
So
does it make a
therefore,
difference
so
really
so
how
that whole
it's
construct
big?
is
Hmm.
the bigger the better. My thing is, and I've said this in front of men, what does size matter if you have no skills? I've had women lay with men that are the size of a Lysol can, and they just couldn't wait for it to be over, turned her
Right,
uterus, and actually had to go to the doctor and have it turned over.
right. Knocked out the
And
box,
right,
literally
and of which she had one motion.
pounding. Right. Hmm.
Okay, so okay, all right, no. You have to, it's a knowledge, it's skills, it's an understanding, it's a learning, it's understanding your body, him understanding his body, and understanding each other's body, that we could collectively create the type of experience we both want to share.
That's good for both bodies. And that's always tell men sometimes your stroke that you had for the past
Mm-hmm.
40 years that Becky,
Mm-hmm.
everybody like Maria may not like that stroke
Right.
because her body is different, but you're often not taught to
Mm-hmm.
explore. It's just the act.
Correct, because we don't. I have a book called Petals. I think Dr. Hilda Hutchison, written by Dr. Hilda Hutchison, because
Mhm.
some men convince women that their vulvas are something wrong with them. What
Mm-hmm.
I share is no vaginal tract is the same, no penis is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's unique, everybody's different. And you have to work out based on the partner. You cannot use an old experience in a new situation. It will make yourself irrelevant. Ask questions. Remember, Tupac said, "Tell daddy how you want it." Daddy never said
Yeah.
how to give it, how
Right.
we
And
was
if
going to
you
give it.
never say how you want it, you can't get mad if you ain't getting it the way you want it.
Exactly. Not my problem. I got
Right.
mine.
Mm-hmm.
I knew
But
what I
even
wanted.
with that, I can say I know for many women that feel that, but they feel the male ego is so fragile that if they were to say this is not good or I want to try a different way, then it's like, well, where you learn that, or how'd you get this, or who you've been doing it, and therefore they don't communicate it because I guess it goes back to feeling safe. You got to feel safe to communicate it. Where if you don't feel safe in that, then it's not
So
going to
my
be heard.
can I be silly serious with you?
Mm-hmm.
So why are they choosing to be with weak men that don't aren't secure?
Hey, like for what? What part are you selling in within
Hmm.
yourself
I
to take
I
that?
can right. I can share with you. There is a demographic of very successful professional women that date probably outside of their socioeconomic situation, which is not an issue. If we can trajectorily be on the same path and look for similar agreements and both willing to do the work. However, they want to build a man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, they're building, and then once they get built, it doesn't turn out the way that they think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what it is too often women, or I've heard some women say, well, they're not used to an alpha type female, or he's insecure, he's intimidated by me. Well, you might have masculine energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How about let's really talk about this and how about you date your complement, not someone you feel you got to build up or you're superior to.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
How
Meeting
about
where
it?
they are. Right.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Therefore, you
there's a
won't have
number of right.
disappointment.
It's that again, many people start with what's wrong with you. How about checking with why do I see it this way and how valid is my perspective? Am I
Mm-hmm.
getting data points from this situation or collectively just from life and just putting them together and making it fit the
Mm-hmm.
situation?
Mm-hmm.
When do we ask ourselves questions? When do we challenge our own thoughts?
Right. Right. Right.
You
To
know, I
go
think
within
as we
yourself. Mm-hmm.
right, the better we know ourselves, the better we can create a litmus test and see the red flags to who we should connect to or not. But if we're not clear about who we are, how are we ever going to know that? Hey, I'm 6'5", I'm 6'5". So if I'm going to have a partner and they focus on one or two spots, there was this guy, he's 6'9", very about 290, athletic build, and in the intimacy wheel working on sex, he knew he had two erogenous zones. His lips were one, and his pelvic region was one. And
Mm-hmm.
his partner said, "Okay, we have an issue. You 6'9" and you got all this body. You're gonna have to learn there, lay down, and be quiet because I got some exploring to do."
To do. There it is.
Right,
That's
and
it.
then I
Exploring. Yes. Yes.
right,
Take time to
and therefore
explore.
I facilitated creating it. I helped normalize it by sharing with him, sir, whatever you know, ma'am, whatever she knows, they got it from old places. I'm
Yeah.
looking to create something unique between the two of you that nobody else can replicate
Right.
because it'll be two different people. It won't work. If you want the out of body experience, let's create something unique that only you two can do.
Right. Right. A
Now,
form of
so now,
interpersonal
right,
intimacy.
right. So
Mm.
he gets buy-in. Why? Because he's not inadequate. He sees where he can win. No matter
Mm-hmm.
what you're selling, somebody has to know they get something out of it. Hey, I'll buy it.
Right.
What do I get? Or
Right.
I'll offer it to you, but what do I get in return?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest.
That's it.
You
That's
can't keep pouring out, pouring out, pouring out because the well will run dry.
it. Mm-hmm.
At some
Mm-hmm.
point, the Lauryn Hill song. At some point, you got to have some reciprocity.
Right. That's it. You have to have an exchange of it. And I think that's where many of us get stuck. And I know
Hmm.
somebody was just about that what happened in their previous marriage that they expressed what they didn't like and they got offended. And
But
this
we,
ended
but
up
we
having
also
an outside relationship because it wasn't heard. It's
right.
like you can speak it and I'm putting it out there, but now what do
Hmm.
you do when they don't follow up?
Right. Now, but first of all, we also have to be clear. One thing to communicate, but how you communicate, semantics matters, tone of voice matters, facial expression, timing.
Yes,
Hey,
timing.
timing. You can tell anybody anything, but you got to pick the right time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, in
Not
the midst of
doing the
communication,
intercourse.
oh my God, this is awful.
Right, exactly.
No, 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 no. That's, timing's off. Timing's off. There's more subtle times to do that. So we have to be mindful and understand your audience. What I do is this way. I said, if I'm a comedian, I'm telling a joke in New York, I got to say tomato because
Mm-hmm.
everybody in New York knows what a tomato is. But if I go to rural Texas, I got to change the joke and say mater
Mm-hmm.
because they
Mm-hmm.
don't say tomato. So if I
Mm-hmm.
tell the same joke, I have to understand my audience. Do I understand my partner enough really to communicate with them the way that they can hear it? So I
Right.
can be straight no chaser, and I recognize sometimes my brashness can be offensive to people that don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
So even people that know me, but they people that know me recognize I'm not coming from a harsh place. It's just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So what they'll say is, "Hey, can you say that differently to me, please?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's how
Oh,
you
oh, and
see it.
then it just ah, I got it. Hey,
Right.
I reframe it because I recognize who I'm talking to. I want a relationship with this person. I value this person.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
let me make the shift and adjustment because I have energy to do right. And what you're asking me to do is direct it in a way that you can see it that I can win. So
Right.
thank you for giving me that information because I'm gonna be Big Daddy.
Right. Because at the end of the day, you just want it to be heard. And so, therefore, if you know a person is sensitive and you may still be a little salty by you saying it a certain way, knowing that it may offend you, you're like, well, I'm speaking my truth. But if it's not going to be heard, why speak it that way? And then some people
Mm-hmm.
say, well, I feel like I'm having to settle to say it this. But the end outcome is to be heard. Is no point of saying it if you know the way you say it is going to be offensive or cause them to shut down. So you're right. It's when and how and what state of mind are you in? Because often if you come with boxing gloves, a person's
Exactly.
going to respond with the boxing gloves, and then you're going to be mad. Oh, you're trying to fight me. You came
Mm-mm.
with the gloves.
Right. If that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing.
Right, right, right. So
However,
that's
now with
communication.
in right, and all the truth that you're saying, though, the other person that may be the sensitive one also has a responsibility to say, "Hey, I'm standing here because I want to hear you."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, the way you're giving it to me makes me want to run away. So can you
Right.
redirect? For example, I come from an aggressive environment, so I don't like to be yelled at. That's why I'm built the way that I'm built,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you will not yell at me.
Right. Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
however, before I used to stand up and express myself. Now I say, hey, because I'm older, wiser, I got stuff to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, excuse me, I have $7,000 worth of extra ears. I hear extremely well. Can you please take your voice down? I want to hear you, but I feel like I'm under attack. So it's too
Mm-hmm.
loud.
Right.
What
Right.
I do is I get soft. I
Mm-hmm.
surrender. Hey, this is me. I have hatred. Can you help me, please? Because I really want to hear you.
Right.
But the way you're
Right.
giving it to me, they may remember the communicator can't see themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
you see them. And if
Right.
you care and you want a healthy relationship, you're giving it to me in a way I can't receive it.
Right.
So there's
Right.
a shared responsibility that everyone has. How do I know I'm offending you if I don't know that I'm offending you? But you
Right.
have to communicate it to me. Then I can adjust. But if you don't tell me and you just offended by it and now you don't like me, you haven't given me an opportunity to defend myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or give you accurate information because you allow your perception to be my truth.
Be the truth. Right. 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 Well, this has been wonderful. We are approaching
Thank
the
you.
hour. So
Hmm.
I hope that people listening have gotten some great insight. Todd, what is your website if people
Hmm.
want to seek you for counseling of any sort? What is your website? And I can put it in the chat.
The website is innerpeacecounselingcenter.com, but another simpler way is toddmalloy.com. You can also go on Instagram, Facebook, all under Inner Peace Counseling Center or Todd Malloy. They'll all take you to the same place.
But thank you. So Todd is in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't think we ever said where we are, but he is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if anybody is seeking some relationship counseling, sex therapy counsel, however you need it in that realm of understanding, please contact Mr. Malloy. Ladies,
Thank
I'm
you.
here to help with the intimacy part of how you get that engine back running, to even communicate that to your partners so that everybody can have blissful and pleasurable relationship, because everybody is worthy of it. And having that
Exactly.
understanding, one, of loving yourself and being intimate
Exactly.
with yourself. So if the expectations you have of your partner that you're not able to fulfill for yourself, then you're always going to be in a stage of disappointment. And so I think we have to learn to stop having expectations, but accept what a person is bringing, to love them, well, how they can love, because sometimes that may be the max that
Hmm.
they're even able to do. So
Hmm.
your expectation, they may not even be able to love on that level, and then you always feel shorted. So communication, understand your love language. That is a big breakdown. If you like being touched, you need to communicate that, because if not, they may think words of affirmation, just telling you how they feel you're
Hmm.
beautiful, is enough. So communication with yourself and your partner, and hopefully everybody can have blissful love and happy sex and happy orgasm. I always have to get that in and let people know can't end it without that. So thank you,
Amen.
Todd. I appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
being on, and
Mhm.
everybody, I hope you have a wonderful evening.
All right. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye bye.